Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Sweet Good Torah. We're going to learn about a very interesting Zohar tonight, and it gives a lot of illumination. It gives a lot of clarity on a lot of recent events that are unfolding in the news right now. So I think it'll be very interesting. The Zohar was written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Let me see. He lived around, so the Hebrew year, he was escaping from the Romans in the Hebrew year of 3894, which is about the year 134 in the Roman calendar, 134 years of the Roman exile. And he escaped with his son Elazar to a cave. They lived there about 13 years hiding from the Romans. The tradition is that I think he learned from Eliyahu Hanavi, from Elijah the prophet, and he wrote down these mystical teachings, and then some were later written down by his students in the Zohar, the Tikkunia Zohar. And he says something fascinating here. So this is on Shemos. It's on the Parsha, the book, the book of Exodus, on 32a if you want to look it up. And he says something fascinating. He says, in the future, the children of Yishmael are destined to rule over the Holy Land, being Eretz Yisrael, being the land of Israel, for a long time, when it is empty from anything. So I think the initial Arab conquests, when Islam spread throughout the Middle East and into some parts of Europe, I think it was around like 683, somewhere around there. And then they conquered Jerusalem, and that's when they built the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. And it says, like their circumcision, which is empty and imperfect. Okay, so what does that mean? So the bris that Avraham Avinu made between him and Hashem, the bris is the covenant, the circumcision is a sign of the covenant. So Abraham made this covenant between Hashem and the Jewish people that we would uphold the Torah. So in one sense, Yishmael, his bris, is empty because Yishmael and his children do not follow the Torah. They've kind of created their own book, the Quran, which is in a sense is kind of their own Torah. They kind of put in what they wanted, not what Hashem, created in the Torah. And there's a more Kabbalistic, mystical meaning that they don't do the final part of the bris. The bris milah. They do, they cut the foreskin, but they don't do the priya. They don't do the folding back, and it's very mystical. It's like it doesn't fully get rid of like the negative spiritual forces by not doing. So that's one thing the Zohar is commenting, and it's not the full bris, but there's also the simple meaning of they're not following the Torah. So it says, and they will prevent the children of Israel from returning to their place until the reward for the merit of the children of Yishmael reaches completion. So it's really fascinating what they're saying. So one thing it shows the power of a mitzvah, even though the children of Yishmael, even though the Arab nations, even though they're not fulfilling the mitzvah fully of what it's supposed to be, just for doing the mitzvah and continuing generation after generation from giving their kids some kind of circumcision. And I looked it up. Yishmael himself was circumcised when he was 13. I looked at it. It seems to be different traditions in different countries. I saw like sometimes they may do it on the 7th day, which is interesting, instead of the 8th day, because the 7th day is just very attached to the natural world, the 7 days of the week. Doing it on the 8th day takes it, into the supernatural. So I find it fascinating they don't do it on the 8th day. It seems like in some places they still do it when the child's like 13, around that age. And then it seems like sometimes when the child is 7 years old. So it doesn't seem like there's any maybe consistency of what they do it, but the mitzvah is to do it if the child's healthy on the 8th day. So then them preventing the Jewish people from returning, and this is what we see unfolding, in the news every day, that the children of Yishmael, they form themselves, especially the Arabs living in Israel, into all these different terrorist groups, Hamas, Fatah, the PLO, Islamic Jihad, many, many others. And their goal in some sense is like they want to hold on to the land. They don't want the Jewish people to have the land. And it's interesting, and what this Zohar is saying is they have some merit from this original bris that Yishmael made, that he did the circumcision, and that he's still, each generation of Islam, they're still doing this, but that merit is going to run out because it's not the full mitzvah. So it says, the children of Yishmael will cause great wars in the world, and the children of Edom will gather against them and wage war against them, one on the sea, one on dry land, and one near Jerusalem. And they, I think meaning Edom, will rule over them, I think Yishmael, but the Holy Land will not be given over to the children of Edom. I said this is very fascinating. So if you're asking yourself, well, who's the children of Yishmael, who's the children of Edom? So I think what we're seeing unraveling right now is, I think we're very, very close to this war between Edom and Yishmael on the water, on the ocean. Okay, and so who does this mean? So Yishmael, it's a little complex right now. Yishmael split. There's kind of a division in the Arab nations, and one of the main powers right now in the Islamic world is Paras, is Persia, is Iran. One of the other main powers in the Arab world is Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia is powerful. They're powerful economically by having large percentage of the world's oil, and they're powerful religiously in the religion of Islam because they have Mecca and Medina. They have the original places where Islam was founded, and people, they have this tradition of making the Hajj, which is like our Chag, our festival, their festival, to visit, to make a pilgrimage to Mecca. So they control the origins of Islam, but yet Iran is rapidly becoming a powerful force in Yishmael. And it's interesting, there's mystical sources that talk about the connection between Paras and Yishmael, and how, just in current political terms, the religion of Persia, of Iran, is Islam. So they're connected to this whole Islamic world, and that's the religion of Yishmael. So there's a tension. It's also interesting, there's, in the current dynamic, there's Qatar. Qatar is more, in some ways, they kind of are straddling the fence between two worlds. I think there's American base there. They broadcast Al Jazeera, so they're a major media influence in the Arab world. But they're giving refuge to the leaders of Hamas right now. They fund terrorism. So then we see Yishmael growing, especially in Iran, growing in its control over the Middle East. So we saw the Simchas Torah massacre on October the 7th, and then Iran is really kind of like they're the driving force. They're the ones controlling the pieces on the chessboard, so to speak. So Iran is like, they control Hamas. They trained Hamas. They ordered this attack, this massacre on Simchas Torah. They control Hezbollah in Lebanon, so they're playing these games. Hezbollah's, firing some missiles also with all the Hamas rockets and missiles and all the attacks, and they're threatening a major invasion from the north. So there's a lot of tension that Iran's putting on the north. There's, Iranian, has a presence in Syria because Syria was fractured in a civil war. So Iran has a big influence over Syria, and Iran controls the Houthis in Yemen, which we'll talk about soon. So then Edom is the children of Esau, and they go on to found the ancient Roman Empire. So say, okay, well, Rome's gone. But in a sense, Edom's gone through 10 phases throughout all of history, and the modern power of Edom is America, is the USA. America is the strength, the power of Edom, meaning like the Christian world. But in a sense, too, Edom has major tension in it. There's a tension between the left, which is secular and pushing like this almost progressive atheist religion, where they kind of like want to turn immorality into a mitzvah, and they like disparage mitzvahs, and they want to pretend a mitzvah is an avera. It's just very bizarre. It all comes out of the Enlightenment of the West and kind of this atheism. And then there is the tension between like the other side in the West of a growing like a return to like Christianity and some kind of religious morality. So there's battle back. So in America, you have Biden, straddling, and he's going, and I think he for most of his political career, he was more of a moderate, more of a classic liberal, and he's, for whatever reason, gone very far in some directions into the progressive camp, and we'll see how that plays out here. So one thing he did after the attack on October the 7th, is he did deploy some military forces to the Middle East. So let me see if I can look at it. So I think it was on 12/16. Well, this is as of now. So okay, let's see what's deployed there. So I think it's the USS Gerald R. Ford. That carrier strike group is deployed in the eastern Mediterranean. I think that's to be a deterrent to Hezbollah invading from the north. And then the Dwight D. Eisenhower carrier strike group, I believe, is in the Red Sea. And we'll talk about that soon. And then I believe there was also a report of the nuclear submarine. So America has tremendous firepower in the Middle East right now. And, this is why I think all this is building the tension for that war between Edom and Paras, or Edom and Yishmael, on the sea. So this first great war will be a naval battle. Now, one of Iran's greatest strengths is they have a very strong navy. They have a lot of little attack craft. So if you remember back to the Biden administration, they had these little gunships, and they captured an American ship and some American sailors and held them hostage for a certain amount of days. Now, what's been going on has been unrelenting attacks on the U.S. troops in Iraq, in Syria, troops on the water. So you have the Houthis also under Iran's control, and they've been firing missiles, and they've been firing drone attacks. And I think just recently on the 16th of December, American ship just shot down 14 more drones. And I think the total attacks on the U.S. forces are about 98 attacks as of right now. And we just see a growing tension. Now, the Biden administration has a very, very weak response. They, before the attack on 10/7, they freed up tens of billions of dollars, I think, in oil revenue to Iran. They actually released $6 billion very close to before the attack. What I found very disgusting is after the attack, Biden went over to Israel, and I think it was November 15th, and it was October the 18th, which was very soon after the attack, and gave $100 million for humanitarian aid to Gaza. But Gaza is completely controlled by Hamas. Is giving Hamas almost $100 million reward after their massacre. And then as a reward, this weakness is just emboldening like Iranian forces. And the Iranian forces just get bolder and bolder. America has just, I think, struck back maybe 4 times, just weak attacks against like warehouses. And it's just all signaling a sign of weakness in the Middle East. And weakness in the Middle East is dangerous. It's like they don't respond. The tens of millions of dollars flowing into them just funds more terrorism, and it doesn't really, it doesn't stop it. So it seems like this situation is going to keep getting, the tension is just going to keep rising and rising. Another major tension point is that the Houthis from Yemen are basically influencing the trade, the cargo ships coming in and out of that area. And they're now like really deterring trade, global trade. And I think this is going to bring, a harsh military response at some point soon. Right, so here's another interesting thing. So I saw this in The End Illuminated by Rabbi Yisrael Moshe Sorotskin. A very fascinating book. He also has a version in Hebrew, but he quotes this Yalkut Shimoni, and I think this is going to be an interesting indication in the future. But he's saying, in the year of Mashiach's revelation, all the kings of the world will be fighting with each other. So the current tensions, I think, could lead to this war between Iran and America. It talks about it in the Gemara and Masechta Avodah Zarah, a war between Edom and Paras, where Edom will win. So it would be like, I would think, the U.S. would win a war against Iran, and the U.S. would be all powerful for 9 months, which will be the birth pangs of Mashiach. So it says in this Yalkut Shimoni, in the year of Mashiach's revelation, all the kings of the world will be fighting with each other. The king of Paras, Iran, will antagonize the king of Arabia, which will be Saudi Arabia, who will go to Edom, who will go to America, to take counsel from them. The king of Paras will go on to destroy the world. Israel will be screaming and bewildered, saying, "To where can we go? To where can we go?" And he will say to them, "My sons, do not be frightened. All that I have done for your sake. Why are you frightened? Do not be frightened. The time for your redemption, the time for your geula has come. So this is a fascinating sign right before the coming of Mashiach, and Hashem's talking to the Jewish people, and he says all these horrific events, don't be frightened. As bad as this all looks, as sad as this all, the loss of Jewish life, as tragic and as sad as it's all been with the massacre on Simchas Torah and the capturing of the hostages, and then the war with Hamas, all these situations unfolding, even though they seem horrifying, tragic, and scary on the surface, Hashem in this Yalkut Shimoni is saying this is all to bring the Geula. This is finally it. This is to bring Mashiach into the world. This is to get, I think, to get the Jewish people to do teshuvah, to return to the Torah, to return to the mitzvahs, to cry out to Hashem, to save us. And I think all these events are starting to unfold. Another sign before we go, another sign that Vilna Gaon talked about, a sign right before the coming Mashiach, and I think we also may see this soon, is that Russia will invade Constantinople. So why? So why would that? Well, we see Russia pushing farther and farther into Ukraine, and it seems, unfortunately, that Russia will completely take over Ukraine. Now, that will put them right on the Black Sea, right next to Turkey. And then I think what the tension's going to be there is Constantinople was where Emperor Constantine founded the Eastern Roman Empire. And I believe that Russia is, just as America is the modern version of the Western Roman Empire in Rome and Italy, Russia could be possibly the modern equivalent of the Eastern Roman Empire that was founded in Constantinople. Now it's Istanbul in modern day Turkey. Now Erdogan is also kind of like a dictator. He's kind of like a little beyond democracy right now. Putin, also Vladimir Putin in Russia, he's kind of little, even though they're having elections very soon, but they kind of more have status almost of kings. They life and death in some ways is in their hands. Obviously Hashem is the ultimate arbiter. No one, lives or dies, but he gives the king permission to have this power of judgment. And I think there will be this great tension over Istanbul or Constantinople, because I think there's growing return in Russia to the Russian Orthodox Church, and the beginning of the Eastern Orthodox Church is in Constantinople, and you have these old, great churches there, and now they've been converted into mosques. And I think as the tensions grow higher and higher in the world, you're going to see this Russian invasion in Turkey, and that's going to spark all-out war, unfortunately, because Turkey's a member of NATO, and it's just strange alliances and allies right now. But this is not a political position pointing, any country to go to war or not go to war. I just feel like from a lot of the Torah sources, they've talked about this coming war, and it seems like we're heading into it. All right, so we'll have to watch. Hopefully we'll see better times. Hopefully see the coming of Mashiach. And Bezrat Hashem, eventually all the amazing nevuahs where people will turn the swords into plowshares and people can get back to a world of peace. But unfortunately, I think before we get there, we're going to see tremendous tension and war in the world. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope to see you back again soon on Sweet Good Torah.